Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Meeting Gold Show.
Yes, how far we've come from your parents'
And that
basement.
is now a year. Andrew Perrie has a big following on social media.
My childhood was... I was born in a town called Newmarket.
What are the negatives to that feeling?
I was like that gangster who just showed up, and I started a fire with it.
Oh my
I
God.
had no clue. Leading up to that, nobody trusted me that I didn't do that on purpose.
It's interesting you see that in your son.
Yes.
What drove that level of independence?
It's a very interesting question. My mind thought everybody was against me. I didn't mean to do this. My job is to prove to them that I've made it.
What's going on, Meeting Gold listeners? It's Chris Battaglia, 416 Coffee, best coffee in the world. Use the coupon code Meeting Gold to get 10% off your first order at 416 Coffee. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Meeting Gold Show. I want to thank you for joining us today. And we have a special guest. I say that most times, but because this is very special. Mm-hmm. I say this most times, reason being is because Andrew Perrie was my first ever Meeting Gold guest.
Yes.
Ever in my parents' basement.
Yes. How far we've come from your parents'
And that
basement.
is now a year and 5 months, I want to say. About a year. It'll be over a year for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Life has gone by so fast in the last 12 months.
That is crazy. A lot has changed in personal lives.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've known each other. We've gotten a little bit closer in terms of like working together and that kind of thing. I always still love giving my story. The way that I wanted to work with you was go to the Virgil skate park and record you skating, and then you left when I got there. But that's okay.
My old bones can only handle like 30, 45-minute sessions. So.
Okay, well, listen, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, man, no
it's been a long
problem.
time coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to discuss with you is something that not a lot of people know. Andrew Perrie has a big following on social media. Andrew Perrie always is talking about the market, is always giving advice, is always helping other people. But what about Andrew? And I want to talk about that today. It won't be the full podcast, but I wanted to ask you a simple question. What in your early childhood should I know to ask you better questions today?
I don't know. What do you... You're asking me to do your job.
Tell me about your early childhood.
Okay. You want... So, my childhood was fairly normal, but when I explain it to Gabe, my wife, by the way.
Gabe the babe.
She's like, that is not normal. Like, I'm like, I don't know what y'all did in Niagara, but I actually grew up, I was born in a town called Newmarket, Ontario, and we lived in Aurora until I was 10. My mom was a single mom for years, and we lived in what you would basically call the projects. That's basically what you would call it. It's co-op housing, and in the center was a little teeny park for the kids to play. It was probably like $300 a month. I really don't know, but it was filled with all demographics, all walks of lives, all races, all colors, all cultures. The only thing that we had in common is that everybody was fairly, I don't want to say poor, but they were basically living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of came with the stories that we could tell or get into. It's like, one year my mom got proposed to by my stepdad, who came into the picture when I was like 5, 6 years old. And they ended up getting married when I was like 10, 11, something like that. And, I was starting fires. Like, that's just the type of kid I was. I was starting fires, Nicky Nine Doors. I was very much a delinquent. I was a fun-loving kid, but I also loved to I grew up fast because I came home after school, made myself whatever I had, and till my mom went home. Like, I was alone a lot, taking care of myself a lot while my mom was working the 3 jobs trying to just support us. And so one day I was starting a fire in the forest, and I grabbed whatever I could find to burn, tissue paper, newspaper, Kleenex, all that stuff. And didn't I end up grabbing her engagement ring inside the tissue paper that was wrapped up. And I started a fire with it.
Oh my
I
God.
had no clue that the ring was in there.
How old were you?
9 or 10. However, leading up to that, like I said, I was a delinquent. Nobody trusted me that I didn't do that on purpose. Neil, my stepdad, his parents, my grandparents, my mom, I think, was the only person who actually believed that I didn't do it on purpose. And, you know, that was the start of, like, you know, you see it out in movies when the kid does the wrong thing. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but they still did it. And that kind of set me up for a future of failures, you know, in school, in the community. You know, I ended up smoking my first joint at 9 years old with all the older kids inside of that subdivision. And, you know, when we moved into Innisfil, my parents thought it was a good idea for us to move to a smaller rural town to get away from drugs and all that stuff. And let alone, that's all they did out in farm country. There's nothing else to do. Alcohol, drugs, skateboard, all that other stuff, right? So by the time I got to the new school, new friends, new teachers, I was this punk with Nick Carter hair, a Penny Hardaway Orlando Magic t-shirt or jersey, and I was like that gangster who just showed up.
What words would you describe your relationship with your mother? Because it seems like we have a lot of different dynamics here with a father figure coming in later on in your childhood. And because you grew up quicker, you developed this mindset of independence.
Yes.
Did you get that level of independence from your mom?
It's a very interesting question, because you talk to my boys, my closest friends, they'd be like, oh, your mom gave you everything. And that's true. Anything I asked for, basically, she would provide. However, I still lived my personal life as independent as possible. I was not coming to family functions as much as I regret that now. I was too busy hanging out with friends, going to parties, doing all of that. But my relationship with my mother was that I knew whatever I wanted, I could probably get.
Was there a little bit of resentment in your family dynamic?
No, I wouldn't say. There was at first, but overall I was pretty happy about the way things were working out with my mom and my stepdad. However, we would butt heads a lot. Growing up, my stepdad was very, very strict. He's not anymore with my little brother, so Nathan, you're welcome. I guess I probably just ruined it for him. He's like, okay, if Nathan turns out half as bad as Andrew, we're just let him do what he wants. Yeah. No, but it was one of those things where if my stepdad was away, I knew I could get away with anything with my mom. So it was a fine balance. There's no resentment between anybody. I love them both very much, and the way they treated me both had that effect of, you know, over loving, and also from my mom, and then from my stepdad, I was never living up to what he expected. And it was until we got into my mid-20s where my stepdad's like, you want to go in the music industry? You've got one more year left before you stop living in this house, and you got to get a real job. And granted, I was, 23, 24, so I probably overstayed my welcome, but I was out of the house after college. I was, back in and out of the house a few times, and not necessarily because I was bad or in trouble. It was just because, I would go and follow the money. I would, I moved to Stouffville for a bartending position. I moved to Niagara Falls to open up the LA Fitness. So I was fairly independent from the very beginning, although I did have a lot of support from my parents. Absolutely.
I'm trying to dissect here that level of independence, because you get, anybody who grows up from an early age, I feel like you go like two ways. You're either super independent or you're not. You cling. What drove that level of independence, do you think, in you?
I think for me, from the very beginning, like I said, like all my teachers, and I see this going on in my son right now. We provide, my wife, it's a loving household. We provide support, education, food, hot meals, a great home, a great neighborhood, great friends. But I still see my son battling with this right now. And I'm like, oh, shit, This is exactly what I went through. As a kid, my mind thought everybody was against me. I thought that, and I think it was because of the story that I told you. Like, I did all of these things innocently enough that led to me getting into trouble. But in my mind, I'm like, I didn't mean to do this. So I think what's pushed me to be so independent was like, okay, I've got to prove myself now. So since day fucking one, I've always felt like I needed to prove myself. The reason why I'm out here hustling and doing all of these investments in myself and in the business and really pushing myself and my team is because there's a small piece, although look, I really don't give a shit what people think about me. I don't. But there's a core group of my subconscious, and the people in that group in my subconscious are my friends that I grew up with, my parents, some family members, and some people from high school I don't even give a shit about. And teachers, my old teachers. I know I got them on Facebook, some of them. And, I see, my job is to prove to them that I've made it.
So I love that is a motivating factor. I find that a lot with me, which I think is why we get along so well. And it's interesting you see that in your son. What are the negatives to that feeling? Because there's a lot of positives. I mean, I think anybody who's out to prove and truly just prove it to people, you're going to win. You are going to win. But at what cost? At what cost did you, because you have proved them wrong. You've proved to them that you can be successful. But at what cost?
I think the cost that I could say from not my perspective, but my son's perspective, especially as a parent, is that there's a lot of heartache in your early years. You feel like people are against you. You feel like the girls don't like you or they're making fun of you, or you feel like the guys are making fun of you. And, maybe you're not smart enough. And it's not because you're not smart enough. It's because from a school standpoint, yeah, okay, I passed with 70 average and I didn't even go to school. But, I always felt like because I didn't get into the best university or whatever, everybody thought I was, making fun of me because I smoked a lot of weed.
Nobody thought you were going to really go anyplace.
Exactly. And I think to answer your question is that what I see in him is what I felt as a kid. Like, although you're independent, your feelings were so hurt when you didn't get invited to that party, that birthday party, or you see people playing road hockey and nobody came to your door to invite you. You know what I mean? And I just see that in my son where he's like, I'll hear him like ask his little brother, "Kay, do you love me?" Right? And I'm like, why? What the hell? Why did you ask that question? Of course he loves you. He's your brother. But it just goes to show, so I think the negatives is that you live a certain piece of your life thinking that you're not good enough.
And that gives this empty, lonely feeling that people don't share.
Right. And that leads you down two roads.
Yes.
A road of fucking bullshit, homelessness, drugs, partying, depression, anxiety, or the route that I took. And trust me, that first route was the road I took. I was trying to fulfill my life with other things
like this.
Music, partying, et cetera, et cetera. But if I had known to take the business route or sales route first, I would be so further along in my business, that's for sure.
Now, I think because a lot of the things that you're talking about, you weren't invited, like not being invited to this party. Yeah, it's a little thing, but it adds up.
Mm-hmm. I still remember in grade 9, high school was really tough for me because I still remember going up to my buddy Dan Bodner, who is now with my other good buddy Dave and Andrew Morehouse. I'm going to give their band a shout out, the Fast Life Band. They sent me a whole bunch of swag. They're still playing music, and shout out to them. But there's certain things in my mind that I still remember and I get embarrassed about even to this day. I remember I heard through the grapevine that Dan Bodner was having a party at his house, and I harassed him all day thinking that he didn't invite me. I'm like, "You're having a party." He's like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "I know you are. Why aren't you inviting me?" And it turned out he never was having a party, but I was just so enthralled with trying to be liked and accepted that it really turned off all of my decision-making skills. And subconsciously, I was just like, fuck this. They're just leaving me behind.
I relate a lot to that because my high school experience was the exact same. And recently. So it's even,
Like yesterday.
Yeah, literally. And those memories drove me as well. And some of the emotions that I feel behind the scenes, I know that you feel as well, because yes, it's amazing to live this successful life where you don't have to worry about money, right? We'll get into that. But it's also sometimes, do you ever wish for a day you could just go back to when you were, like, things were just easier, like you wanted to be accepted, like you could just live that acceptable life for a day instead of just being an outsider all the time?
As a kid, yeah, I wish that all the time. And if I wasn't friends with the cool kids in high school, I don't know what type of group I would have been in, because I was friends with the drama people, friends with the sports guys, the smokers, the drinkers, the skateboarders, the musicians, the footballers, like everybody.
Yeah, you cater to the groups that you were with.
Correct. And I use that personality in my business now.
You do.
Because, I try to adapt to my client, and that's not me changing who I am. That's just me making them feel comfortable. But no,
which is important.
As of right now, no. I don't wish I was a different person. I don't wish I took things differently, because and what we'll talk about, I'm sure, is that this amount of anxiety that I feel when it comes to business now, it's interesting, because I used it when I was doing Dancing with the Stars. When I was doing the dancing routine is where I was physically almost numb and shaking at the same time, because I was so nervous and anxious about the future and where the hell's the business going and how's this dance routine going to work out. But at the same time, I'm excited, because I know through that pressure comes great change, and you come out of these things bigger and better. So I don't wish that I could go back to a more acceptable time, because it wouldn't have benefited me in any way. Like, all of that is superficial now. I understand that. However, what is not superficial are those personal inner turmoils that help you come out a better person.
So let me ask you this, and this kind of ties on to what you just said. When you are in this state of wanting to prove people wrong all the time, right?
Yeah.
Especially in like the building. I mean, we're always building, but there's that initial first, like, where you can say, okay, I proved myself to the regular people, right?
Yeah.
That crapped on you and whatever, right? Do you have this feeling that when you feel like you've proved yourself, it's almost like your expectation was much higher? You expected that you would feel much more powerful.
Yeah, you don't.
And you you actually feel less.
Yeah. So let's just talk about some of recently experiences. And you know what, and I can talk about this now is because it really helped me get to where I am. So like even some of Gabe's family members. Oh, you sure you want to do that? It's going to be hard. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Or, we even had one of the family members not use us. Granted, I had just, as a realtor, and I had just started, so I don't fault them at all. But it actually made me a better realtor, because I was like, shit, okay, so if Gabe's family doesn't even want to use me, what have I done wrong, or how can I prove it to them that I can do it? And now I think without that type of competition, like they didn't say, I've never told this to them.
Yeah.
They've
I
never
see where you're
said
going
anything.
with this, though.
But I'm like, shit, you know what? I really want to impress these people. Like there was never any animosity about it at all. I totally understand. But one thing that came out of it was that it made me a better realtor, a better business person. And now they all get to witness just how far I've come in a short amount of time. Because when I first met Gabe's family, we got pregnant really fast. And the one thing they said, they're like, are you still going to move to Edmonton and accept that position with LA Fitness? I was like, yes, why not? Well, because Gabe's pregnant. I'm like, well, Gabe will come with me. Right? So right off the bat, they never thought that being a salesperson at a gym was any better, whereas they thought it was a lot worse than some of the careers that they maybe have. And it took a long time to earn their respect. And now I have the respect, and I appreciate that more. Had I had just done a deal, it would have just been a deal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I agree that. And I want to go back to this feeling with your stepfather.
Okay.
Because this is where it stems from, is this feeling that you're there, but you're just a couple inches below where you should be in his eyes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of sons deal with that. You said your son kind of feels that way. Maybe not with you, but maybe even with you.
Me. Who knows?
There's no way of you knowing.
Yeah.
And similar to my relationship with my dad, it's always whether it's true or not, you always feel like it's just a little bit lower than where you're supposed to be. And that's a good thing when you're looking at, you wanting to grow in terms of business or motivation, because you're a firsthand reference. It drives you more than any girl breaking up with you, more than that feeling, wherever that comes from, pushes you.
Well, you're right, because even when I left LA Fitness, which was a 6-figure position plus bonus
which is crazy,
right?
Yeah.
He's like, Andrew, you just landed this position. It's the best thing you've ever had. Are you sure you want to give that up? And I looked him right in the eye and I said, abso-fucking-lutely. And he's like, all right, I support you. Even my stepdad, my dad, my mom, they're all my biggest supporters. But you're right, living up to what his expectations were, because he's been at the same job for 45 years with Magna. And that's a really good job. And he's worked his way up. But one of the reasons why he's such a big supporter is be like, I don't think he'd wish that on me now. I don't think he'd wish staying in the same spot for 45 years would be any benefit to my life and how I live it.
So my follow-up question, I always play devil's advocate with myself before I ask these questions to figure out how you might respond. But one of my questions is, as a father, you wish better than what you had, right? So
of course,
the negatives in your life right now, you wish, Hudson or your sons to not have.
Of course.
Right? Do you think that expectation on them not to have that gives them a little bit of this sense that they're not good enough?
Can you just rephrase that just a little bit? I'm just a little confused.
No worries. So when you're saying Hudson, let's say use Hudson as an example, you see the things that you went through in your life, and you want the best for him. You want him to just skip that party stage and go right to
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
You want that for him because you know that's what's best for him.
Right.
But what if that's not how he's going to live it?
Man, I know. I talk to myself about that all the time.
Scary feeling.
It's what are these things that I want my son to achieve, and what if he's not looking to do that in his own life? Man, that's a tough question, and I probably wouldn't be able to answer it because it would be how I'm going to be a different person by then. So I don't know how I would react. How I would react right now would be like, because what I've done in the past and how far it put me behind, where I had to dig myself out of a hole in my mid-20s just to get to where I am today, I would want him to look, Hudson, you need to do this and this to jumpstart to get you in a better position financially as a business owner, et cetera, et cetera. He's not going to see it that way. And I don't think there's any way to force somebody.
So it's funny because I think, and then now my devil's advocate part to this is,
because make an Andrew Perrie 2.0, make him bigger, better.
That's what you want, right?
Right.
But then it's generations are going in circles. I'll use because I know my dad's dad, right? My grandfather, immigrant, moved here, alcoholic, but was the hardest worker you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
That type of life, right? And always, nothing's ever good enough. Mm-hmm. And my dad wanted to achieve what I'm trying to achieve with him. Mm-hmm. But obviously my life is easier than what my dad's life was. So you get these easier and easier lives, but the same in-circle feeling, because I know for a fact I'm not going to see it my dad's way until I'm his age.
Right. Absolutely.
So is it just something we have to accept?
Yeah,
And is it just something
absolutely.
you're just going to have to come to terms with?
100%. It's like the same thing. Like, I mean, if he goes to school, if he happens to, like men, if he happens to want to play soccer instead of hockey, like these are just things that like I want him to be at the end of the day who he wants to be, and I'll love him unconditionally. So if he wants to get into business, if he wants to do this or do that, it doesn't matter.
Or play music for the rest of his life.
The only thing that I care about is that he's happy, because we have one life. And the only reason why I would try to adjust him from a business standpoint is because without fucking money, unfortunately, you're going to have a really hard time being happy.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and the rate of inflation just keeps going up, and people want to spend your hardworking money for people who don't even want to work, or, I don't need to get political, but it just seems that the path that we're going, unless we shift gears, it's not going to be pretty.
So we talk about what's worth it to stress about, right? Everybody stresses over things all the time, and somebody might not stress about money. Somebody might stress about money. But if that person's not stressing about money, there's definitely stressing about something else.
So it doesn't necessarily, and I'm not trying to say I want him to get into real estate or own his own business because he's going to make more money and he doesn't have to. I want him to learn how to manage his money and how to do the things in a rational manner, because if he's anything like me, there was nothing rational about me until I hit maybe 27, 28 years old.
So on my point of the stress, and if he chooses not to stress about money, and maybe he doesn't have a lot, you've done well for yourself. You have money. You definitely don't have to stress about money in your personal life.
For now.
Can I ask you, what things do you stress about?
Number one, and just the reason why it's number one right now is just because it's so prevalent at this date, October 20th, 2022. Shit, that's weird to say out loud. Is my team, and my number one responsibility to the team, and where the business is going. Because as we go through these shifting markets, it's important to, get back to basics, really take a look at your expenses, and also try to get the team into a position where they don't necessarily have to worry about money either, which is a very difficult thing to do when you come out of this real estate market over the last 2 years where leads are just basically free. You sell them quick, they close quick, and you're on to the next one. Where now the deals are so few and far between that I, as a team leader, have responsibility for the rest of my team. So I have been completely stressed out over the last few weeks. As September, we were minus $12,000, which we spent about $53,000 and we made about $40,000, 38 or in and around there. So that's the side of real estate that people don't understand. This isn't selling sunset. This isn't fucking Instagram influencers. This isn't nice cars, blah, 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 blah. This is hard work, dedication, support, education, reinvesting in yourself every day, taking care of yourself from a health standpoint, and truly seeing that, like, I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that said, holy shit, the Fine Estates team spent $53,000 in September. What the hell? That's basically as much as it costs to run the business per month. And they don't understand that. And if we're not hitting those targets every month, there's only so many expenses you can cut. So that has kept me up at night for a few weeks now, because it's something that we've been trying to deal with. And, as a team leader, you got to keep your cool. And that's even harder because, you want everybody to not be scared of what's going on. However, you do need to be authoritative and explain to them the reality so they can make that decision for themselves.
And so having that stress, what do you do to deal with it? Because everybody, like I said, stresses. Everybody needs to deal with that stress.
So,
like, what are your own ways?
At its basic form, you know, I go quiet. So my mom was visiting on the weekend to see us at Dancing with the Stars. We have dinner as a family every night, and I'm just like, I'm like that. I'm quiet, and it's because I'm purposely thinking about it. I'm purposely walking through different scenarios, and because a smarter, more intelligent man might be able to sit there and come up with a solution in an hour or two. For me, it takes days, weeks, because I have so many things coming at me at once. Family, work, listings, clients, marketing, content, blah, 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 where the only times I have quiet are, that couple of hours between work and dinner. And it's not enough time for me in situations like this. So I deal with it by just going quiet, getting into my own head. And some people think that that's a bad thing to do. You're like, don't get lost in it. But that's the only way that I know how, that I can run through different scenarios and say, okay, so what if we do this? What if we do that? And then we start writing things down and implementing them through a brainstorming session. So that's how I deal with it, is I get quiet and I just think. I urge people to stay away from alcohol during that time. Stay away from junk food during that time. Live a healthy lifestyle. Take your vitamins. Get some workouts in. If you can't get a workout in, at least get your 10,000 steps in. And if you need to retreat into your own mind, do it. But just make sure that you're conscious of it and you're not allowing a depression or anxiety mindset to take over.
And that, I think, I see what you're saying, is you fight this feeling as a business owner. You are stressing over everybody else's lives from a business side, but also, more importantly, your family, and making sure that they are well taken care of.
Of course.
And you are stressing to make sure that everybody can be happy. And you're constantly fighting this feeling of not being depressed or demotivated or drained.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that I'm dealing with right now is, I was putting Hudson to bed and I'm just standing over top of his bed looking at him. And I'm like, and I know I shouldn't be feeling this way, but it's something I haven't felt in a long time. This imposter syndrome, I get that all the time, but like not to this depth where I'm like, fuck, like maybe everybody was right. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe I'm not supposed to be at the big boy table. Maybe I'm not supposed to be in charge of 10, 12 people's lives. Maybe it was a mistake buying that building. Maybe it was a mistake going out on my own. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough to get our team out of this.
And that's almost...
It's been a crazy couple of days, I'll tell you.
Yeah. And you know what? I think you said this. It's such perfect timing that we're having this conversation. If we had this a year ago,
or even 3 weeks ago,
yeah,
I was worried about it, but
then it hit you.
Yeah.
I think it's good timing because now you see where the true fighters come.
Absolutely.
Right, and everybody knows that it's going to get worse. Yeah. It's not going to get easier.
At the end of the day, if things get too rough, then I'm going to pull up my socks. I've already started working with buyers again, working open houses again, which I haven't done in 2 years. So I am doing what I need to do to ensure that I'm contributing to the team. But if things get worse, then I'll just have to get way more involved, which I'm totally fine doing. And that's what a leader should do.
And it's funny, we're feeling the same way right now, is business processes, quality control, figuring out ways that we can solidify communication between clients. Same goes for your industry. How or what do you have to do? And do you feel like you could work harder?
Yes, every day.
Do you feel like you should just work all the time more, even with your family. You're sitting at dinner,
Yes.
you're watching, you're playing with your sons.
Yes. Yesterday was a great representation of that, where I had my computer out at the dining room table. They were all in at the eating kitchen, and dinner was just on the table. And I'm sitting there writing a motivational, clear expectation email to the entire team. Gabe's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I need to get out there." Because the way I left my team meeting was everybody thought I was just passively firing them. That's what Paige said. "Are you doing the Andrew Perrie thing and not what's the word? Like just trying to get us all to walk away without dealing with it?" I'm like, A, how's that an Andrew Perrie thing? B, no. I'm just saying, like, look, collectively, we have to both live up to our ends of the contracts. I'm living up to it by providing marketing support, blah, blah, blah. The team needs to live up to their side. They're all amazing individuals. They're all doing a fantastic job. I just said, as a business leader, we need to cut some expenses, because if we're not fulfilling our goals, we can't fulfill our expense budget like we've been doing for the last 24 months. We have to make those cuts in order for the business to survive. I don't want anybody to go or leave. However, if you feel like you're not going to be getting the value from these cuts from being on the team, then you can walk away at no recourse, and I wouldn't think any less of you. That's what I said.
Yeah. That's interesting. My next question is, when do you make the very hard decisions?
It's difficult.
And I think you know what I mean by hard decisions.
Yeah, I mean, we've already made a very difficult decision. We did not want to turn off our online leads. We did not want to cut our marketing budgets. We did not want to ensure that we didn't want to put anybody on the spot. But sometimes you have to have those tough conversations with people. You'd be like, look, we ask for 15 deals a year. That's the bare minimum. If you can't hit that, you have to look inside yourself and see if this industry is for you. See if working together is for you. That is not me punishing them. That is me saying, let's get real here, because if we don't, you're going to hate me in 3 months when you have no paychecks coming in.
So
it's my job as a team leader is to hold them accountable and call out reality checks when they're needed. And they know it. I'm not saying anything that's a surprise.
No,
or a shock.
they definitely know it.
They get it.
And my next question is, like, you set expectations, right? Do you ever feel like you could have set better expectations or been more clear? And 100%. Do you always feel that way before you make these hard decisions? You always want to fight making these hard decisions, letting go, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't want to let go anybody. I want us all as the finest state team to thrive together no matter what. And, you know, sometimes I could have, I always think about that all the time. I could have set, I don't want to say more clear standards, but maybe more accountability on that going on an ongoing basis.
Yep.
We have
Follow-ups
one-on-ones every week. And it's like, where are you in terms of hitting your goal? What activity did you do? And what activity can you do next week to help improve those numbers? But that's it. Maybe I should have done a little bit more of a better job, either, you know, incentivizing the team in different ways. Mm-hmm. But I come from an old school sales background. I come from like, fucking sell, or
just sell.
What are you doing? Here's the training, here's the scripts. And I just have to be a little bit more adaptable as a leader in that regard. That's why I hired Crystal as our VP of sales, because she has a completely different outlook, where I'm look, you got to do it. Here's the numbers. Here's the amount of people you need to talk to. Just go do it. Where Crystal's like, okay, you know, a little softer approach. And if you don't have that yin and yang, and Andrea's like just fucking do it. So Andrea's similar to me too. But so you have to have those different dynamics in the leadership roles in today's sales environment, I think.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you a couple questions for another like 10 minutes, because we're okay on time, and I'm enjoying this conversation. When you look at your son, when you look at the family and realize and things hit you that you are the future of how this family will look, do you get nervous?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I think every parent gets nervous, and I think the most important thing is that, and the thing that's crazy for me is I got 3 kids, so I got 3 opportunities to stress and get nervous about for the next 30 years of their lives. But you just have to trust the process. You have to do your job as a parent to ensure that, you know, the right things are being done. You can't just say, oh, well, he's going to turn out the way he wants to turn out. Like, you have to show up every day and do the tough things as a parent, where, you know, Gabe would be like, well, maybe you need to be a little bit tougher. But it's the same thing with my team and my kids. It's the same process. And I'm just maybe not as tough as I should be. But then again, that's why I have Gabe. That's why I have Andrea. They do the harder stuff. And, yeah, so I'm definitely nervous, but I think just have to trust the process.
Yeah, you can't stress about what's going to happen in 10 years.
No, you can just stress about how you can control right now.
So what are some things that you do to keep yourself accountable to personal growth and to business growth? Daily, weekly, it could be annually, quarterly.
Well, we have a coach that keeps us in check every week, and now Crystal has taken on more of that role with the coach, but, you know, we still connect, the coach and I, and she's very like, okay, you can't completely exit out of the business. You can't, you know, completely run the show from the top down. Like, now you got to get in the trenches. So we get these weekly accountability messages as well, right? But I think for me, from a healthy standpoint, is I use my personal fitness trainer's app, and I make sure that I'm holding myself accountable every day by inputting every piece of food that I eat inside that app, so that I know by the end of the week, by the end of the month, I've hit my goals, and that's the reason why I don't feel like shit anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So there's multiple ways that I hold myself accountable, but you're right. I think there needs to be something a little bit more.
The whole point of this show is to let people talk and just ask leading questions to make them think about their story and maybe see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
If you could describe, because I still see a lot of the things in you from a personal side and how you react to things is a lot based on how you were brought up.
Yeah.
Can you?
That's true.
Yeah. See, it's interesting to look at. Can you give me your mother's perspective on your relationship with her and her raising you?
Fuck. Jesus. My mom thinks I don't call her enough. My mom thinks I don't love her enough. My mom thinks that because I don't call her enough, it's because I don't love her. And she thinks that I'm living my life with this new family or my family in total disregard of where she is, because we live 2 hours away. So that's an interesting question. I think if she...
But even from an early age?
No, she's always... I think that's where I got it from. She's always asking me, do you love me? Do you love me? So I think that's where our genes are so similar between my son, me, and her, is that it's a constant need to be appreciated, maybe. So for me, it's not necessarily like that. It's a recognition standpoint from, you know, I want people to know. I don't need my team to say, hey, you did a good job. You did a good job. But I do need people to know who I am and be like, wow, fuck, that was a good talk. Or he did great. He helped me in this time of need. So it's transitioned from more of a, I need people to like me, to I would love if there are people out there that could learn something or improve their life because of something I've done for them.
So in the times when you don't feel appreciated, maybe it's by your mother or, you know, as your son gets older, I'm sure that things will arise like that, where maybe he doesn't feel appreciated, or maybe definitely where you won't feel appreciated. As he gets older, he'll get friends and
Yeah.
he'll take off, and Friday nights will no longer be, or Wednesday nights he'll be out.
Yeah.
Do you turn, because I see this thing here. So you were 20, 30 years old, and you didn't have a family, or I don't know what age you had a family, but you're younger.
27, I
Okay,
think.
so you're younger. So like 20 to 27, let's say. When you didn't feel appreciated, I see you flipped a switch and you went to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you don't maybe feel appreciated, you see a different perspective because now you have a family. Now you have a son.
Right.
Now you have individuals who care about you, and you don't turn on this, I got to prove them on switch that you did 10, 15 years ago. Now it's something different. Do you kind of know where I'm going? What is that you turn on?
I think it's just the fact that it comes from not a superficial place where, like I said before, it needs the need to be liked has transitioned to a place of where you want people to see that you have value, and I think that's a little bit different than just wanting to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if my son could understand right now that it's going to be a tough few years for him, there's no way you can explain to a child that, hey, this is all superficial, none of it matters, blah, blah, blah. What really matters is how you treat people. Obviously, that's something we're going to try to instill in him. However, it's really something hard to get across to a kid.
So what's one life lesson that you want Hudson to understand as he gets older?
Well, if you're watching this when you're 10 in 4 years, when you can understand it a little better, I think that you just got to know that your family loves you. And no matter what you do, your family will always love you. And that it doesn't matter what people think of you, unless it's because you're being a jerk. Then that matters. But what matters is that you're doing your best at whatever it is you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
And as a parent, what is it that you want to instill in him that your mother instilled in you?
I just love people, and just don't be a dick. It's basically like, it's funny because the way my leadership style is now is reflective of my real dad, who's extremely charismatic. Everybody loves him. And my stepdad, who's a hard worker, stern, but fair. And my mom, who's really loving and jokes, and she's also charismatic. Banter, sarcasm. I've taken things from all three of them and implemented them into my life. And I just think that I don't know. I just think that it's one of those things in life where you just have to take things on a case by case basis and just ensure that, everything's going to be all right as long as you do your best.
I think that was a good finisher. Okay, so I want to sell a house with Andrew Perrie. How am I going to do it?
At the Andrew Perrie on Instagram.
Okay, all right, perfect. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
Seriously, reach out to Andrew, guys. He's one of the, I don't know if I'm going to get flack for saying this, one of the best agents I know on a personal level who will actually care about you.
All your clients are all great realtors.
Yeah, they all have opinions.
Yeah.
I love all of them.
Absolutely.
And I stay out of the opinionated sides.
Yeah. We'll leave that to the reader's choice.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, listening, and joining us today. I'm excited to see what Johnny whips up with this trailer. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.
Peace.